Thank you, and welcome to the March 15th, 2021 Mesa City Council meeting. I note that all of our council are present. At this council meeting, we are taking comments both over the telephone and the internet. You can find multiple ways to participate on the first page of the council agenda. Additionally, if you want to speak, you should submit a blue card 1 hour before the meeting. Again, you can find that information on the first page of the agenda for this meeting and at mesaaz.gov/blue card. We will begin our meeting this evening with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. So please stand for the moment of silence and pledge. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is the consent agenda. We'll ask Mr. Kevin Christopher to please read the consent agenda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. These are the items on the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk will be considered as a group by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless a council member or citizen requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered as a separate item. Item 2, approval of minutes of previous meetings as written. Item 3A, act on liquor license application for Buddy's Chicago Pizzeria, 7641 East Guadalupe Road. Item 3B, act on liquor license application for Native Grill and Wings, 1559 South Gilbert Road. Item 4A, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years renewal options for employee uniform garments for citywide departments. Item 4B, act on contract to purchase fire station alerting system equipment for new fire station 221 for the Mesa Fire and Medical Department. This purchase is funded by 2018 authorized public safety bonds and developer contribution. Item 4C, act on contract to purchase modular furniture and installation for the Library Services Department. Item 4D, act on award of additional vendors to the 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for off-site vehicle washing services for citywide departments. Item 4E, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for larvicide mosquito control chemicals for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4F, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for window cleaning and power washing services for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4G, act on 3-year term contract with 2 years of renewal options for fencing and gate installation, repair, rental, and supplies for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 4H, act on an 11-month term contract for new Microsoft licensing as needed for various city departments. Item 4I, act on 1-year renewal of the term contract for refrigerated liquid carbon dioxide for the Water Resources Department. Item 4J, act on Cemetery North Expansion Phase 2B and Urn Scatter Garden Project. Item 5A, act on resolution modifying fees and charges for the Parks, Recreation, and Community Facilities Department. Item 5B, act on resolution extinguishing a public utilities and facilities easement located at 5149 South Inspirian Parkway to allow for development of Steadfast Farms at Eastmark. This was requested by the property owner. Item 5C, act on resolution approving and authorizing the city manager to enter into a 2021 Contract 207 fund with the Arizona Governor's Office of Highway Safety to accept grant funds. The funds will be used by the Police Department's Traffic Division for overtime, employee-related expenses, and materials and supplies to support drug enforcement in the city of Mesa. Item 5D, act on resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into purchase power agreements with Solon Development LLC for 4 downtown Mesa solar projects for operational terms of 25 years. Item 6A, introduction of ordinance regarding ANX 20-00242, annexing property located north of Pecos Road and east of Ellsworth Road. This request was initiated by the applicant. And item 6B, introduction of ordinance regarding ZON 20-00846. This is a property located east of Ellsworth Road and north of Pecos Road. A rezone, special use permits, and site plan review to allow for development of a recreation facility. Mayor and council members, these are the items on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher. Ms. Mickelson, are there any blue cards that have been filed for an item on the consent agenda?
No request, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Council, is there a motion for approval of the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Thompson, seconded by Mr. Luna. We will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Duff.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you. I vote aye as well, so that motion passes unanimously. The next item on our agenda is item 7A, which is to discuss and take action on zoning ordinance 20-538 for property located south of the 202 Red Mountain Freeway on the west side of Alma School Road involving 30.9 plus or minus acres. This is a modification to the planned area development overlay and amending a zoning condition to allow development of a new office building and parking garage within an existing office development. Council, we had a staff presentation on this project at our study session on Thursday, and that PowerPoint is available to the public at the agenda link if you would like to view that presentation. Ms. Mickelson, I believe that we have had several blue cards submitted from the public. Could you please introduce those that want to speak from the public first? We'll allow them to speak, and then we'll read any written comments after that.
Okay. Our first speaker is Philip Bramson.
Yes. Am I coming through fine?
Yeah, please.
Yes, you are, Mr. Branson. Thank you. You
Okay.
have, I'm sorry, I should have prefaced, you have 3 minutes.
I hope you'll indulge me for about 1 extra minute. I've done my best in practicing this to get it down as much as possible. My name is Phil Bramson. I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Maureen Schultz. She resides at 1242 West Mountain View. This case is certainly not new to any of you. Its merits have been discussed at length, as has the opposition of the neighborhood to the south. The residents are not opposed to job creation and the associated benefits. They are, however, opposed to the intensity of the project and the close proximity to their homes. The neighborhood asks that the proposed Waypoint 5 office building and parking garage be denied as inconsistent with the city's site plan criteria and design guidelines, and is too great an intensification of the site and inconsistent with the 2007-2014 approvals. Alternatively, we ask that you impose the following stipulations. 1, that the office building and parking garage be lowered to 2 stories. The parking garage can be lowered by providing 1 or 2 stories underground. 2, that the adjacent residential community be provided with modified garage designs offered during the Design Review Board meeting of February 9th. 3, that the adjacent residential community be made aware of any further modifications to this entire center, including any administrative requests, regardless of scope. 4, substantial conformance with the modifications made by the applicant listed on page 2 of their citizen participation report dated January 26th of this year in response to the neighborhood's concerns, and as described in the staff report to the City Council of today's date. In the event the proposed parking garage is not lowered to 2 stories, the parking garage shall be no more than 3 stories, a maximum 26 feet 5 inches along the south half of its structure, and 4 stories maximum 44 feet 8 inches along the north, as depicted in drawings shown in the applications to the City Council of today's date. No solar panel structures shall be constructed on the top level of the parking garage. Proposed perforated metal panel screens on the south face of the garage shall be architecturally unique, as required by the Design Review Board comments of February 9th of this year. Refuse enclosures shall be located in the northeast and northwest corners of the parking garage, as far as possible from the neighborhood to the south. Landscape islands along the south face of the garage shall be a minimum of 10 feet wide. Additional trees in the landscape area along the canal between the parking garage and the neighborhood to the south, per the staff report to the City Council of today's date. Trees along the canal and between the parking garage and the neighborhood to the south shall be 48-inch box at planting, per the staff report to the City Council of today's date. A pedestrian path shall be constructed and maintained in the landscape area along the canal, as shown on various site plans submitted to the city for the DRB, Planning and Zoning Commission, and City Council hearings. Maintain a 40-inch screen wall along all parking garage levels facing the neighborhood to the south to help block vehicle headlights. Eliminate parking garage top floor light poles and replace with wall pack lighting that does not rise above the 36-inch screen wall along the parking garage top decks. That the parking garage be redesigned to include the level of architectural detail in the office buildings. This should include physically breaking up the large south-facing facade using horizontal articulation and building breaks. The addition of architectural elements such as physical metal detailing and pop-outs and the use of contrasting colors and modifying the roof line with horizontal breaks to create visual interest. All parking garage lighting be consistent with dark sky requirements and shielded from the adjacent residential neighborhoods. And finally, that nighttime renderings be submitted to the neighbors and the city showing light spillage and including photometrics detailing the lighting. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Okay, Mayor, the next speaker is Janice Jakes. Janice, are you on the line?
Okay, hold on.
Janice, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go
I
ahead.
had to change computers. Thank you so much for waiting. My name is Janice Jakes. I reside at 1318 West Mountain View Drive. We built our home about 22 years ago. I've been a homeowner for Mesa for over 30 years and a Mesa business owner for 35 years. My husband, Perry Jakes, and I were involved in all the 2007 meetings. There were ongoing meetings held at schools, city hall, neighbor houses. We were promised no more than 2 stories in height buildings for the project. This is in writing, and to say that this was an agreement between the developer and the neighbors only and not the city. And this was in Mark Freeman's reply to an email that he sent me about a week and a half ago. Please help me understand this, because it had to pass through the DRB, through the P&Z, and through the city council. This is all city. So just as we are doing now with the Waypoint 5 project that we've been involved in since October. So to me, that's city. So I don't understand how we are misunderstanding that. There is a PowerPoint presentation that I believe the mayor has allowed Shauna Boyle to present. So you'll see in her 5th slide, PowerPoint slide, the project has been limited to 2 stories. In slide 6, it mentions 38 feet, 4 inches, which is 2 stories in height. And I quote from the PowerPoint, the city required the developer to comply with this. And if you take a look at her slides 12 and 13, fast forward to 2014, I'm not sure how this can be remotely called a minor modification. It is so close to the homes, so massive. And as you can see, when you see the pictures, it's all lit up 24/7, even on non-office days and on the weekends, 6:30 in the morning, and 7 o'clock in the evening, Sundays, and so on. We mentioned this light invasion to Michael Monroe and Mike Edwards. They stood on our patio on November 3rd. Michael Monroe was not sure why this was happening, why 24/7. He did say he would look into this. That was 3.5 months ago, and we're still looking at the light. So we can only assume the lighting in the parking garage and new office building will also be lit up 24/7. One more note, I find it very offensive for Councilman Kevin Thompson from the P&Z to state the property only has the right to build whatever they want. If that affects the view, I'm sorry. The views alone are not what this is all about. It's about what is right, what is appropriate, what is neighborly, and what was promised. Not just by the private developer, but yes, by our city of Mesa. It's not about the views. Sure, that's part of it, but it's towering, it's massive, it's so close to the homes, it's so inappropriate. Thank you for letting me speak.
The next speaker is Ruth Ann Showalter. Ruth Ann, if you can hear us, unmute your phone. Do we have, is Stephen Brown on the line?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Stephen?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
thanks. My name is Steve Brown, and I have lived in Mesa most of my life since moving here with my parents, Dr. Richard and Louise Brown, in 1959. My wife, Dawn, and I have lived on Mountain View Drive since 1989, where we bought a beautiful home to enjoy the expansive views of Camelback Mountain and the McDowells. Riverview Development came along in 2007 with neighborhood meetings and promises to keep buildings limited to 2 stories to preserve our views. These promises were kept for the most part, with one exception being the Cinemark Theater's neon red spire, which was livable due to the distance from our homes. Then one day, without any prior notification or discussion, a 3-story office building appeared right behind our house and the adjacent vacant lot. This building took away most of our picturesque view and replaced it with 3 stories of glass walls and ambient lighting streaming into our picture windows at night. The proposed office building and parking garage will do much the same to our neighbors down the street east of us. I understand the city's desire for additional income from this development, but the negative effects on our neighborhood's quality of life are real. There are a number of more expensive and exclusive neighborhoods in Mesa than ours, but we have a unique appeal with the great views to our north and east for at least some of those still living on Mountain View. I appeal to you to require the developers to make the changes in their buildings that we have recommended, so this can be a win-win for all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is Ruth Ann Showalter on the line? How about Anna Showalter? Okay, we'll go to Shauna Boyle.
Council, Ms. Boyle, if you don't mind, let me preface your comments. I spoke with Ms. Boyle earlier. There are, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Mickelson, there were, I think, a few other folks that filed blue cards asking that their time be given to Ms. Boyle. So I've consented to that. So Ms. Boyle, I know, has submitted some PowerPoint slides that she would like to include, and I think staff is going to accommodate those slides. And I've indicated to Ms. Boyle that we'll give her 9 minutes.
Yes, can you hear me? This is Shauna Boyle.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, and if you, before you start the timer, yes, to respond to the mayor, yes, specifically 5 people, including my 3 minutes, Aaron LaGrassa, Paul LaGrassa, Perry Jakes, Lori Kagiyama, and myself gave up our 3 minutes to have this 9-minute presentation. So thank you for that. And then I will get started and let you know when to change the slides. So to start off with, Nana, if you could please just move slowly through slides 1 through 11. And these are just slides to highlight the fact that back in 2007, when the plans for this development initially began, there was cooperation and input from neighbors, developers, and the city, and there were multiple meetings. Keno Hawker, the former city of Mesa mayor, lived in the neighborhood at the time. And in the PowerPoint slides here, you can see documentation that we found in the city records and that you can see in these PowerPoint slides, that the city, developers, and neighborhood met together and agreed that the height of these buildings and the approved site plan was that the buildings would be no more than 38 feet 4 inches tall, and buildings A, B, and F, as listed in the original plans, were built at that approved site height. Nana, if you could please move to slide 12 now. So the picture you're going to see in slide 12 shows this existing building 4 that the neighbors have mentioned that was built without notification to the neighborhood. Now, does this entire 3-story building look like a quote minor modification to you? If the original plans to have a 2-story building there had been adhered to, then that entire top floor of bright fluorescent lighting would not exist. This picture is taken from the last empty lot in the neighborhood, from the sidewalk in front of where a house would be. My husband and I own it and are preparing to build a home for ourselves and our 3 young children to live in. This picture was taken at 6:30 a.m. Why on earth are a whole floor of bright lights on? Imagine that light shining into your bedroom window as you're trying to catch a final hour of sleep. If you're thinking, just buy curtains, neighbors, that same argument of asking us as residents to spend more money to deter the effects of the development is also our argument to you. The developer could spend more money to put their garage lower in the ground and avoid the issue. My brother-in-law has a friend who works in that building. He has told us, his friend has told us that he can see right into the windows of the homes in our neighborhood. Not surprising, we can see right into their windows too. Would you want all of those people to be able to see into your children's bedrooms? The proposed parking garage would be just as high and spread across the length of at least 3 more properties than this building does. Imagine how much worse the invasion of privacy will be. Anyone can enter that garage and see into our backyards and homes. If you could turn to slide 13, please. This shows another image of that same existing building floor. This is taken from the back porch of 1318 Mountain View Drive, directly to the east of the empty lot in the last picture. This picture was taken at 7:00 p.m. on a Sunday, February 14th, 2021. Again, why all the bright lights on a Sunday? Some factual negative impacts that we have already been experiencing from the existing buildings. Noise from landscapers as early as 5 a.m. on weekends and 6 a.m. on weekends. Weekdays, 5 a.m., 6 a.m. weekends. Security vehicles running all night long in the parking lot. Noise annoyance from trash pickup very early. Wednesdays, trash, Saturday, recycling. Lights on, as you can see from the existing buildings. Obviously, an additional parking garage and new office building of this magnitude and in very close proximity to our homes would increase exponentially the noise, light, and invasion of privacy and quality of life for us. If you could please turn to the figure on slide 14. This was also taken from that same backyard. And you can see, slide 14, please. You can see beyond the pool, and you can see that this project has not achieved a good transition from residential to commercial. Our neighborhood has very much been immersed in a commercial building complex. Figure 2 on the bottom right is a virtual designer scan of a 4-story parking garage of what it'll look like from 10 feet above the ground. Even if there are screens covering the garage, there will still be light bleed. Noise pollution is not protected by screens. Noise from cars constantly starting to leave the garage, come to the garage. And the elevator shaft as well, the noise from the elevator, as well as kids that invariably will skateboard, play, make echoing yells in there. Added heat also will affect us from a large concrete structure just across in our backyard. Increased invasion of privacy from a constant flux of people being able to access the garage and see into our backyards and homes. If you could please skip forward to slide 19. So we are asking for a compromise, not to not have a development, but to strike a compromise. This is a dispute between property owners. It seems like a compromise would be the right solution. Why would the developers have more authority to decide what happens there in our area than we do? We're asking that the new office building be limited to 2 stories above the ground, consistent with the original 2007 agreement. We would also like the parking garage to be no more than 1 story above the ground. If additional parking is needed, there are plenty of street parking. There is precedent for underground parking garages in Mesa. At Banner Baywood Hospital and Banner Heart Hospital on Power in Maine, they each have underground parking. As part of the renovation project at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Temple in downtown Mesa, there will be an underground parking garage. We are not asking an unreasonable thing. We have been concerned about the amount of parking that they're asking for, and our neighbor Perry Jakes, who works in construction, actually went personally and counted out the parking spaces that they have asked for. In their master plan, they have asked for 2,757 total parking spaces for the whole complex. If you could move to slide 21, this examples this more and spells it out. So if you take into consideration the amount of parking spaces that are there now on the ground, and then the footprint of the proposed building 5 that they want to put that will eliminate the ground parking spaces left over, there will be 2,003 parking spaces remaining. So they would need 754 to be made up for what they want. That would equal a 2-story parking garage. So why are they asking for a 4-story parking garage? We are greatly concerned that this huge structure that's going to cause such a detriment to us in our neighborhood is going to be a waste of space. On a Google Earth search of a midweek workday pre-COVID, 34% of parking spaces were being used. All Waypoint office buildings at this time in 2019 were 90% occupied. According to the economic developer, 90% of the Waypoint office buildings are occupied as of March 1st, 2021. As neighbors, we see less than 40% of parking spaces being used on a regular basis. Why subject us to a constant nuisance when it's not needed? If they're so willing to spend money on extra levels of parking, why can they not take the extra money and put it towards underground parking? If you could just move forward to my very last slide. I've timed this out. It'll take my last minute and 30 seconds. If you could just give me this and then I'll end my piece. We are fighting for our homes here, our homes. We are fighting for the historical integrity and future viability of our neighborhood. We are fighting for homeowners like the Aikitas, who donated $1 million for the Aikita Theater in downtown Mesa. We are fighting for the neighbors who are in their 90s now and are not capable of getting on a Zoom call. The way you vote today will affect what we and our children hear and see when trying to sleep at night. The way you vote today will determine if our neighborhood is run down in 20 years from prospective buyers abstaining because they're not interested in a beautiful home with a view of a parking garage. The developer will build and then sit in their New York office collecting rent money every month. You will vote and then move on to the next agenda item, but we will have to live with the effect of whatever is built every single day. The new extension of our backyard is being decided by City Council. If this was being built in your backyard, you would fight with all you had to come up with an actual compromise with the developer, just as we are. Why do you think there was a proper compromise agreed upon in 2007 when the mayor at the time lived in our neighborhood? We are not against economic development. We are also Mesa business owners. That's why we're asking for a compromise, not for this development to not exist, but a compromise. Please either vote for a continuance based on the multiple unresolved concerns that we have listed today, or suggest an amendment to the proposed development that includes an underground parking garage with only 1 story above ground and a 2-story commercial building consistent with the majority of the other buildings already in place. Thank you so much for your time and allowance of this presentation.
Thank you. Ruth Ann Showalter should be on the phone now. Ruth Ann, are you there? Is Ruth Ann Showalter or Anna Showalter on the line? Ruth Ann or Anna, are you there? Okay, Mayor, I'll move to the comments that were submitted for individuals that wanted their comments read. The first comment.
May I speak, please? Hi, this is Joshua Boyle. I submitted a comment card, but I don't believe it was received. I'm just wondering if I could have an opportunity to speak as well.
Okay, Mr. Boyle, I believe we just heard from your wife. Is that right? Josh, are you there?
You did. I had some additional comments. I wasn't part of the group that had given up time to her.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Mr. Boyle. You have 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. So yes, my name is Joshua Boyle. I'm Shauna Boyle's husband, who you just heard from. We own the lot at 1328 West Mountain View Drive. I'm requesting a continuance on this project as I believe we need more information. But if a continuance is not granted, then I am requesting that you not approve this project as it is currently proposed. And again, we're not opposed to development. We're not asking you to make a binary choice of development or no development tonight. We're asking you to require the developers to really engage in meaningful discussion with us. One of the things that they have said at nearly every meeting is that, oh, well, we've listened to the neighbors and we've made these changes, where realistically they've never especially listened to us, listened to our concerns. Last year, Mesa approved the Broadstone Dobson Ranch apartment complex. That complex has buildings that escalate from 1 to 4 story buildings, with the 1-story buildings closest to the neighbors escalating to 4 stories closer to the freeway. If the developers of that project would have earned more money from their investment by having all the buildings 4 stories tall, then why not simply allow them to build 4-story tall buildings? And as Councilmember Heredia stated, that escalation away from the neighbors actually would protect them from an encroachment from the project on the neighbors. And that's what we're asking for tonight. We're asking the City Council to please protect us from the encroachment by the developers with their project as planned. It's been represented that our neighborhood's opposition to this project is about losing our mountain views, but that's a straw man logical fallacy. Our concerns are much more than that. We're concerned about light pollution, noise pollution, invasion of privacy, as well as preserving our views. And like I said, we're also concerned the developers have not meaningfully engaged with us yet, or excuse me, they haven't meaningfully engaged with us. We were an afterthought to the developers, so much so that they had not even met with the neighbors prior to the first design and review meeting last year. The developers did not tell us that they had submitted plans until 2 weeks before the design and review board meeting. And at that design and review board meeting, to their credit, the board did continue the agenda item until after the developers met with us. But again, we were an afterthought. They already knew what they wanted, and what they wanted is basically still what's before you tonight. Even with part of the parking garage only being 2 stories tall or 3 stories, I'm not sure which it is at this point, we're still being encroached upon. Real compromise would be an underground parking garage with entry secured to only people employed at Waypoint. My wife brought up, there's concern that children or other people are going to go there and make loud noises, et cetera. But realistic compromise would also be there being some real requirements about lighting at night. And underground parking would also dampen the noise so that we wouldn't have to have the sound of cars in our backyard. My wife and I plan to raise our 3 young children. There might be more, and I really don't want children getting woken up by cars driving around or by children or other people in the parking garage making noise. And so again, we're requesting that the City Council please vote no to this. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, I'm going to go to the comment cards that wanted their comments read. The first one is from Dick Gertler, and he states, I've been a homeowner on Mountain View Drive for 41 years. I was involved in all of the 2007 meetings that involved the Riverview project. You will see my name mentioned in the documents and meeting notes. As much as we love the farmland that was our background, we knew we could not stop development. That being said, at least we were heard and respected by the developers and by our city. My wife and I cannot say that now. Suddenly, a 3-story building gets plopped up in our faces and causing light, noise, and privacy intrusions. No notice at all. And now an overbuilt, unsightly, massive parking garage and another 3-story office building is proposed. The concessions that are being proposed are not enough or seem fair to our Mesa community. Not to mention, how do we trust anything at this point? The next comment is from Diana Devine, and she states that she lives at 1263 West Mountain View Drive. She's in support of her neighbors. In support of my neighbors most affected, I oppose the approval of this project as proposed. Is Ruth Ann Showalter on the phone? No. Okay, those are all the comment cards, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I am.
I'm sorry, is someone on the line?
This is Ruth Ann Showalter. I'm on the Zoom portion.
Thank you, Ms. Showalter. Go ahead, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to the moderator for your patience. My name is Ruth Ann Showalter. My mother and I live at 1262 West Mountain View Drive. After reviewing the council's March 11th study session recording and also listening to today's session, we as a neighborhood feel it's clear that the council does not have complete and clear information concerning this case. Not only have our concerns been sort of mischaracterized by the planning department, as well as a lot of the council member comments that it comes down to losing our mountain views. But also a legal question just came up less than an hour ago from Councilmember Duff, or excuse me, Vice Mayor Duff, to the city attorney. And we would like more time to investigate this, as well as to present more information on our case. We appreciate the thoughtful comments and the questions from the members looking at the case, but we would like to get further presentation in your hands in advance of your April 1st study session, and hoping that this can be continued for a vote to the April 5th study session. The extra time that we're asking for would allow us to do a few things. One, we request an on-site meeting between the neighbors and our District 1 Councilman, Mark Freeman. Secondly, we would like to have a Zoom meeting with Planning Director Apia to review the case history, its relevance, and a lot of the current case details, as there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding as to the meaning of some of the things that have come from the history of the case back in 2007, as well as how approval processes going forward have happened. We would also expect, and we know that Councilmember Freeman would love to get the neighbors together with the applicants for another neighborhood meeting, and we would certainly welcome that. Also, as Josh Boyle just said, after we had an opportunity to meet on our own with our District 1 advocate. And again, this would give us more time to get a full presentation in the council's hands to answer a lot of these ongoing legal relevance questions in hopes that that would be something that you would look at your April 1st study session in order to speak about, in order to vote on this at the April 5th meeting. Excuse me. Thank you. I'm sorry. That's the gist of my comments is asking for this continuance so that we can be as thorough and accurate as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Showalter. Is there anyone else on the telephone line? All right. I know we had a staff presentation last week on this, but I believe that the applicant is also on the line. Is the applicant there, and is there anything you might like to add for a few minutes to the presentation that we received last week?
Mayor, members of the council, this is Adam Baugh on behalf of Lincoln Properties. I do have a presentation that I would like to share with you today.
Go ahead, Mr. Baugh.
Thank you. And I believe Nana's going to help me advance through it. Nana, does that mean I'll see it on the screen or?
That's fine. That's what I just pulled up on the screen.
There you go. Mayor and council, I appreciate your time and consideration. There's been a lot of discussion on this. I think what I hope to accomplish is for you guys to ask yourself these 5 questions right here. By the end of the presentation, I think those answers will become pretty apparent and hopefully lead you to the decision. The question is are these building heights allowed by the current zoning? Are these building heights any greater than the current buildings? Are there any height restrictions in the code or some other document? And is the percentage of parking ratio we're asking for critical or not necessary? And then lastly, why does your professional planning staff the Economic Development Department, and the P&Z Commission unanimously recommend approval. Nana, let's go to the next slide. This was the building. Next, there we go. Looks like I got muted by accident. This is the building and the plan from 2007. As you can see, and I point to 2 buildings there, those buildings were 38 feet tall and about a combined 166,000 square feet. So those buildings were right there along the edge of this property when this case was first brought forward. Nana, next slide. In 2013, there was another amendment that was approved, and that showed a building at 159,000 total square feet at 50 feet tall in roughly the same spot where we're proposing our building today. Next slide. As you can see, this is where our building is proposing to locate now with regard to the overall development. And I'm now realizing that the delay between the YouTube channel is a little bit longer than I expected, but let's go to the next slide, Nana. What we are proposing is a 3-story Class A office. That office has a necessary garage component with it. And that garage component has 2 levels to it, or excuse me, 2 heights to it. It's a half level on the top floor. So it's 26 feet closest to neighbors and 37 feet on its north side. There's a stairwell and 2 elevators that are about 44 feet. But by and large, these are the 2 numbers that matter here. And the architecture for this project and the heights for this project are very consistent with the surrounding buildings. Let's go to the next slide. There has been a lot of feedback from this, and it's focused on things like the height of the building, the screening on the garage, the ratios. At one point, we proposed some solar canopies atop the garages to provide shade and also solar illumination for the cars above. There's been questions regarding lighting and line of sight, and so what we've done is we've taken that information. And I understand that no matter what I say, I don't think I'm going to change many minds with regard to neighbors, and I certainly appreciate their input and involvement in this case. And while we've made some significant changes, they may not be enough to compel them to all support the case, but I do want you to know what we have done. Let's go to the next slide. We have done 2 virtual meetings, one in October, one in November. We went and met with the neighbors in December. We went and met with the neighbors in January. We flew a drone to take photos from the actual levels of the properties behind. We started to create photo renderings, and we started to do some real market research to figure out, is this development and the parking ratios actually required? Let's go to the next slide. And so what we did in response to that, and I understand that this isn't removing the garage, which is really what the preference might be, or removing it down to 2 floors, but we have done some things. We lowered half of our top level down to 26 feet, and that's the side closest to the neighbors. That's essentially the height of a 2-story home. And given that our garage is almost 230-ish feet away from the neighbors, I don't think that's unreasonable. We also removed the solar panels, canopies that were on top of the garage to also remove the height. We've added panel screening on the garage fence. We've put more muted colors on there. We've even removed all the refuse enclosures that were on the back side of the garage in response to that feedback. We've beefed up our landscaping by widening our landscape islands and putting more landscaping along the canal. And overall, we've reduced our parking by 120 spaces from the moment we started this engagement with the neighbors to presently today. And we've also added pedestrian paths, and we still are continuing to refine that garage architecture. Even that will still be determined and redefined as we go forward after this hearing. Next. And the key thing I want to point out with this slide here is you can see this is the image before, and you can see the solar canopies and the garage enclosures that were on the back and the trash bins and the 3-story heights. Nana, go to the next slide. And you can start to see where we made the big change. Removing those canopies, removing the trash enclosures, stepping down that top floor, and then starting to add screening elements for the garage level. Next slide. For comparative purposes, I just thought sometimes it's helpful to see them side by side, but you have a long meeting, so I'll be brief and just, let's go on the next slide, Nana. What you'll see here is this was our attempt to put screening in between the individual levels of the garage floors in response to the neighbors. This was a metal panel screening, and we also attempted to do landscape vines that would go across it, but there was a feeling that that wouldn't be acceptable either. So since original DR hearing, now we'll go to the next slide. We've continued to revise our garage elevations. We have submitted this to staff, but frankly, that we're waiting to get some feedback on this. But this is another attempt to provide articulation and some enhancements instead of just a flat monolithic surface. And we're still open to ideas. The reason why this came up was because this was a suggestion from the design review board when they referred to the AT steel parking garage screening elements. And so these are adopted from that. Let's go to the next slide. A cross section here shows you the perspective with the solar panels being removed and the half floor being removed. And then I think what's most important here are these next following slides, Nana. You're going to see a photo from the middle of the project today. And this is taken from the backyard of the neighbor's house. This is the center of the development. And as you look at this, this is the present view today. Not many views, but of mountains. You can see the parking lot and trees and buildings. And if you go to the next slide, we started to simulate the height of our structure inset into that photo. And as you can see, it doesn't really obscure much of what hasn't already been limited already as far as view goes. We'll go to the next slide. And this is a different angle, more from the eastern edge of the neighborhood, looking more on a westerly direction. And then from this photo, you can kind of see again the heights and the buildings. And then we'll go to the next slide after that. This simulation shows how the garage and the buildings will fit into that area. I also want to point out that even this garage here in this simulation doesn't show the half step down that we've made since this simulation was created. And so I guess we'll go to the next slide, Nana. The thing that matters, the thing that I'm hearing more than anything else is these heights. And so it's important to kind of put this into perspective. The heights that we are proposing are no greater than the heights that are already in this office development today. There's a 50-story building to the west of us, and all the other 2-story buildings about 35 feet tall. Our new building will be similar in height, 50 feet, but it's in the very center of the project. And the garage building has 2 heights, 26 feet on its south side, 37 feet on its north side, with some stairwells that have about 44 feet height. And so when I think about what we're dealing with, what we are creating is an office development that's consistent with the office development that it's set in. We'll go to the next slide. It's important to understand the parking ratios. And I think as much as we've wanted to make accommodations, the one thing that we've told the neighbors and shared with them in the beginning is how critical that parking is. In many cases, I think there's been a sentiment that we are overparked because the parking code of the city doesn't require this much parking. We are definitely trying to meet the city parking code, but more importantly, trying to meet the office market. And here's some comparable factors that I think worth highlighting. These are other developments in Mesa and surrounding Mesa with their existing parking ratios between 7.34 per 1,000 square feet down to 5 parking spaces for 1,000 square feet. And so we have to look at this and figure out how can we build a building, create jobs, bring a new industry, and also stay competitive with the surrounding communities. And in this case, if you look at what we are, our existing waypoint today, even if we don't add a building or the parking, we're today at 5.63 per 1,000. Once we add in our new building and our parking garage, we're actually even lower. We'll be at 4.84 per 1,000. And so you got to ask yourself, if the average of all these other ones I just showed there are about a 5.76, and we're proposing a 4.84, that means we're about 19% below average with regard to parking compared to the other developments. And why does this matter? We're not even being competitive with our own project in Mesa, which is the Union that Lincoln built. We're literally putting ourselves at a competitive disadvantage with our own development. Yet we've done this to try to be responsive to some of that feedback and concerns. Now, we want to create a Class A office. But the last thing we want to do is build an office that will be functionally obsolete, that can't compete in the marketplace with other developments around us. And so while we are overparked per code, we're effectively underparked per our comparative our competitive properties. Next slide. And so at the end of the day, the thing I asked were some key questions here. Is the proposed building height permitted by zoning? It absolutely is. Is this proposed height any greater than current buildings? No, the other buildings are, even the 2-story buildings are still 37 feet tall. So our garage is just like the same height as those. Are there height restrictions per code? No. Are there any document? No. And the thing that I read was a reference to a 2008 Planning Commission meeting minutes, referring to a plan that was being considered at that time. that plan was showing a 38-foot tall office building along the canal. That was the plan for consideration, but in no way did that hamstring and handcuff the council from saying we can't do anything different than that in the future, subject to a modification process, which is exactly what we're doing. So it would be disingenuous to suggest that meeting minutes referring to a different plan way back then have somehow limited the council from considering revisions and new plans in the future. That can only be done through, I believe, a development agreement or a zoning ordinance change. So at the end of the day, our restrictions, there are no restrictions that we've been able to find through this process. Now, our ratios are critical. They're under parks per comparative developments. And we think that's a key consideration. So why does your planning staff, who spent more than a year probably work on this, your economic development department, who's been trying to create new opportunities in the city for people to live and work close to home, and your planning commission recommend approval? No, let's go to the next slide. It's because this plan is consistent with your general plan. It specifically calls out this being a mixed-use activity area, the kind of thing that this development creates. You go to the next slide, and I'll summarize it with this.
15 minutes.
When you have a planning department that's making a recommendation, when you have your staff, economic development department suggesting approval, when you have P&Z, it's because this is consistent with the general plan, it's consistent with the zoning, it's consistent with the existing PAD, it's consistent with the heights in the existing park, it meets all your site plan review criteria, and it hits the key initiatives that the city is trying to do to attract these jobs and high wage employment. And for those reasons, why I believe this should be supported by staff and why it should be recommended by approval for council. It doesn't mean that the neighbors don't have an important voice in this, but what it means is we've been able to make changes where practical, but what we cannot do is reduce the size of a parking garage that makes a building obsolete, which in that case would never be built. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I appreciate your consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ba. I heard another voice on the telephone there, maybe questioning the amount of time the applicant had. I'll just tell you, I was keeping track and came in at 12 and a half minutes, which I think is slightly less than what the Boyles had. But at this point, we're going to shift to council comments on this and questions. I'm sorry, let's begin with Councilmember Spilsbury. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just wondering, I don't know if I've really seen a figure in any of the presentations, but how much does it cost to put the parking structure underground? I've just heard that it's a lot.
It's about, Councilman Spilsbury, it's about $25,000 of parking space and over 300 and plus parking spaces at that level. That's probably an $8 million change. And so then you got to ask yourself, can the rents in this new building support an $8 million increase? And that's not something that it can be supported. And so we would find ourselves building a building that can't lease out for the cost of the construction.
Are you saying it's $25,000 more than the cost of building an above ground one?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure who that is, but you're not a part of this conversation. At this point, it's the council asking questions. Council, other questions for the applicant or for staff? Mr. Thompson.
Well, I think the applicant kind of talked about it a little bit. So in the documents that we received earlier today, they were referring back to the 2007 I guess the 2007 agreement or what have you, development. And they were talking about a 38-foot, 4-inch tall building where I guess the garage is going to be located. And I think the applicant said that the garage was 26 feet. So it's been reduced from 38 or from 38.4 to 26 feet. Is that correct, Nana?
Mayor, council members. So the applicant is referring to, we calculated a height based on the stairs, the maximum height of the building or the parking structure. He's using a different height from the maximum height from what we saw from the elevations is actually 44 feet. which includes all the features in the parking structure.
How tall was that?
44 feet, 4 feet.
Okay, so it was 44 feet.
That's
The structure itself is 44 feet tall, and then is that with the step down from the hill?
Mayor Council, so that's the highest, that's the one with the third story. So it stepped down from the beginning, the southern section, and it goes to the third floor. So we use the third highest, which is the 44 feet.
Okay, and how tall is the building that's being proposed?
So,
That's 55 feet.
so wait, Counselor, are you asking what so remember the parking garage is stair stepped. So are you asking
Right.
the front elevation?
So the front elevation,
What is the front?
is that 26 feet?
That's, I think, 26 feet.
That's 26,
Yeah.
and then it staircases up to what, Nana?
44.
And then it goes to the building height, which is the building behind the parking garage.
That's
is.
55 feet.
So 26, 44, 55.
55, that's correct.
And the land slopes downwards though, right? Is that correct? Or is it pretty flat at that location?
It's really flat at that location, but it's at a lower grade compared to the adjacent residential buildings. Those are at a higher grade.
Okay. And then, so was there ever a development agreement, or was this kind of this agreement that was done? Was that more of a handshake and a nod, or a wink, or what have you, or was there an actual development agreement that's put in place back in 2007?
So Mayor and Council, if I can answer that question, I'll field it. We're not aware of any development agreement. What was submitted were minutes of the Planning and Zoning meeting of May 17th of 2007. And I'll read sort of the short version of this for the public. A resident spoke in opposition, stating that the 40-foot tall buildings were too close to the property line and there would be some invasion of privacy, adding that the views would be blocked and this project is too close to residential. A representative of the developer stated, "This project is in conformance with the zoning district and the area of encroachment that is not in conformance will be corrected." He then clarified that the building heights were 38 feet tall, close quote, and it goes on from there, but I think that's sort of the relevant portion. So this was just a statement at a planning and zoning meeting, and so it's not an agreement. There is no agreement. There's a statement and a representation from the prior developer that a building was going to be 38 feet. That is what was shown on that site plan at that time. And obviously there's a process to amend that, and they've gone through that process. They went through that process in 2014, and they have some buildings that are higher than that now, and they're going through that process right now before council tonight.
Okay, I guess, I mean, I'm still supportive of the project. You know, I was a little offended when, I think it was Janice, was offended by my remarks, I guess. You know, again, I mean, when my wife and I bought our house, you know, we specifically looked at locations that didn't have a vacant lot next door or behind us, because we wanted to make sure that we knew what was going to be built and what type of neighborhood we were going to be in. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it does boil down to the views, whether it's the light, and I'm sure that the developer will probably use LED lighting on property, so it'll be focused more down than into the air for light pollution. You know, it seems like they're trying to accommodate the neighbors as much as possible. Again, it's about the developer has the right to build as long as he meets the zoning requirements of the property, and it seems like this project is meeting the zoning that the property, because they're not asking for a rezone from residential to light commercial or what have you. So it seems like the zoning is in place and it meets the zoning, and they've done what they can to try to accommodate the neighbors. And again, I'm supportive of the project.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
I had a couple more questions. It does seem like the developers have gone out of their way to try to accommodate a lot of these issues. In the pictures with the trees, how many years out are those, is that projected tree growth? Because it looks amazing. I'm just wondering how many years it will take for those trees to get that tall. And my other question would just be, is the parking garage going to be lit 24/7? That light would drive me absolutely crazy.
Mayor, Councilmember Spilberry, so with the lighting, we do require a photometric plan, which will be submitted with a building permit to make sure that the lights doesn't spill over. In addition, the garage and the office buildings are actually 120 feet at minimum away from the nearest residential building as well. And in terms of the landscaping, one of the things we will require to make sure that the plantings are of sizes that it's not going to take several years for it to actually reach maturity. So that's one of the things we will be making sure that the trees are actually matured enough that it will cover the canopy as you see quickly as possible.
Okay, so they would be putting in more mature base root than a brand new tree that will take 20 years to get that tall or whatever.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Duff.
Thank you. I just wanted Nana to clarify for us so that residents are aware, and I have a reminder also. The staff is allowed in the Planning and Zoning Department to make minor modification approvals without going through process. And Nana, is that when it's within the allowance of the ordinance or the code, or is it within a certain percentage of change? What is that allowance that staff can approve without going through process?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Duff, in 2014, there was an administrative approval process that was based on the intensity of the project. So the reduction that actually happened in 2014, the buildings were reduced from 443,000 to 434,000. So overall, there was actually reduction in intensity of square footage. And that was within the limits of what was allowed to be approved administratively.
And so let's clarify, that reduction, though, did end up with a 3-story building.
And that's correct.
So that's where even though the administrative discretion allowed for the decision to reduce the intensity, and the trade-off is the developer went to 3 stories, and that was the decision made by the planning director, is that to get less density or less total overall square footage, he allowed them to go higher. What we come today is the request is for an additional, what's the total square footage now?
500, just a
Yeah,
minute.
so because of it's increased significantly the total intensity, and with the parking garage, I think that's what creates, that's why we're here today.
That's correct.
The residents are talking again and again about the parking garage, yet the new building has a 55-foot height on it. And is it because of the distance, or maybe, I'm asking ourselves instead of the residents since we're not in dialogue, but even with the parking garage, I keep on thinking you're still going to see that office building. It's a little bit further away, but it's still there. I don't know if we're solving anything to debate the parking garage. Also, just within my knowledge and experience on planning and zoning, I don't see any legal right. I mean, I don't see the way that we legally can prevent this from happening. I think it is totally arbitrary to make these, and if we abide by our code and our ordinances, this is allowed. And I know there's a great debate about that, but at the end, we really have to abide by the documents that we have to make a fair process for everybody in the city. And I realize it's very difficult, but I am in agreement with planning and zoning and our staff on this project to prove it. However, if Mr. Baugh is open to it, I'm open to a continuance to hash this out, to provide mediation and more dialogue about this project. So those are my thoughts and where I want to leave it. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mayor. And I appreciate the comments from all my colleagues. You know, there's a lot of information here for us that we've been digesting in late emails. And we have two decisions. Number one, we could vote to approve this project, or number two, we can vote for a continuance. And I'm willing to ask my colleagues to vote for continuance, allow me to work with the neighborhood and with the developer. I've talked to Mr. Baugh about this earlier last week about a continuance, and I just think that's the best messaging right now for the neighborhoods, to show that we can get through this and make the best of it. And at the end of the day, we'll make the appropriate decision, and it'll be April 5th is our next council meeting, from what I understand, and it'll be up for then. So no longer than April 5th, and I would just ask for your continuance. And Mayor, I welcome your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I am anxious to weigh on that, but Mr. Luna had his finger up. Go ahead, Mr. Luna.
So I know that Vice Mayor Doug had suggested that perhaps there may have been a previous agreement. There isn't anything binding, right? With the initial proposed development that was proposed in 2007 to now. So we're not bound to anything legally. And I think maybe that's a question Jim Smith can answer.
Mr. Smith?
Mayor and Council, there isn't a legal agreement that limits or prevents council from either approving or disapproving this development. There was a comment made in minutes at a P&Z meeting in 2007. That's not a binding agreement that precludes council from approving this. This is a rezoning. This is a legislative act. This is within the discretion of council whether or not it wants to approve or disapprove this application and this request.
So I would defer to Councilmember Freeman. This is his district, and if he feels compelled to work with the residents in and around that area, I'm going to support that motion, that we continue this conversation between the residents that live in and around that area, as well as the developer and Mr. Baugh, if that's a pleasure of this council.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, can you, obviously this is on our agenda as an action item today. Mr. Freeman has suggested, and I think we could consider that a motion to continue this to the April 5th council meeting. If that gets a second, can we go ahead and vote to that effect and continue this public hearing to the April 5th council meeting?
Yes, you can, Council. And because it's a zoning case, I would ask that it be a date specific. And so thank you for making the April 5th, 2021, our regular council meeting will be the continuance to.
Okay, so I know there's others that want to make comments, but just so we're clear on where we're at procedurally, I'm going to say that Mr. Freeman has made a motion that this matter be continued to the April 5th council meeting, and that Mr. Luna has seconded that. So that is before us. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, before we vote, I'll defer to, like Councilmember Freeman, Luna, I will defer to Councilmember Freeman. It is his district. I just, wonder how much is going to be accomplished if the applicants already had, 2 virtual meetings, 2 in-person meetings, and a couple of backyard meetings, and still nothing has been decided upon. How much more time and money is going to be spent by the applicant to satisfy neighbors that may never be satisfied. But again, I'll defer to Mr. Freeman. It is his district, and I'll follow his lead on this. But again, I'm supportive of the project. I'd like to see it go forward.
Okay, Mr. Heredia, I saw your hand up earlier.
Yeah, no, just real quick, I'll defer to Mr. Freeman as well, and ask for continuance on this. But not sure if process-wise, if within the discussion that we're having is, we already have a 3-story building that's on the lot there. is there an ability to provide an opportunity for neighbors about the light pollution and any complaints that they have in the future if this development goes, is to have some sort of recourse on providing some ability to have conversations with the tenant at that location to provide some help on or ideas on how they can work together in that neighborhood so if they do have complaints in the future. So I'm not sure if that's part of an agreement that has been talked about within this new development, but would that be something that could be added to, or I'm not sure if it's already there.
Mayor, Councilmember Heredia, typically we do have what we call good neighbor policy, and the good neighbor policy sometimes addresses who to contact if there is light pollution or if there is any trash, pollution on the site. So it's within the jurisdiction of the council to require a good neighbor policy that will outline how those issues will be resolved in the future if they come up.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Yeah, I wanted to also say that I am fine with a continuance, and I think there could be some more mediation done. If it was just the view, then yeah, you buy the property and you protect your views. But as a mother, have lots of years of little kids and putting babies to sleep, and I do think there could be some issues with light and noise that need to be really addressed. I need to go drive over there and check it out for myself. So if any of the neighbors want to invite me over for dinner, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I do need to drive over there and check it out for myself.
I have a feeling there's text messages being sent to your phone right now, Councilmember Spilsbury. All right, well, I also support the continuance. I think the more dialogue, the better. And I think we have identified there's been a lot of due diligence done on both sides of this, but I think there is still room for improvement and mitigation and good neighbor policies and a meeting of the minds on a lot of the issues that have been identified tonight. So I will gladly support the motion for a continuance. Okay, so at this point we have a motion and a second. We will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Freeman, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Spilsbury.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Heredia.
Aye.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Duff.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Luna.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you, and I vote aye as well, so that motion passes unanimously, and we will reconvene this public hearing on April the 5th at our council meeting. Next item on our agenda is items from citizens present. Ms. Mickelson, do we have any requests to speak?
Yes, Mayor, we have 4 speakers on the line regarding this item. The first speaker is Sandy Whitley.
Thank you. Normally we hear from 3, but I'm going to go ahead and allow 4, but I do want everyone to know that there is a 3-minute time limit. So please proceed.
Good evening, Mayor Giles and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Sandy Whitley. I am a 32-year resident of Mesa, a grandmother, a nurse, and a hiker. I'm a volunteer with Citizens Climate Lobby, an organization advocating for national carbon price, but I'm here this evening as a private citizen and long-term resident of this community to commend this council for its decision to develop a formal climate action plan for the city of Mesa, and to tell you why that is so important to me. I know Mesa has had an active sustainability department for many years, a project-based sustainability program. I have been the beneficiary of many of those efforts, and I am grateful for them. However, I'm feeling a real sense of urgency that we need to accelerate our efforts to reduce carbon emissions and clean up our air, and am thus so pleased that Mesa is doing its part with the action plan. I approach climate change from a healthcare perspective. After I saw the brown-yellow cloud hovering over Phoenix 70 miles distance, some years ago while I was hiking on Picacho Peak, I knew that I needed to learn what was in it. And since that time, I have learned much, more than I ever wanted to know, actually. My nursing background gives me a perspective both from a human suffering standpoint and a cost standpoint. And as a society, we spend a lot of money on medical conditions that could be avoided by cleaning up our air. Pollution in the air we breathe affects every system in our body. We cannot not inhale pollutants. We have to breathe. It is an autonomic body system function. We inhale whatever is in the air. Particularly noxious to all of us are ozone and particulate matter and nitrous oxides, which come from dust and soot, and also the burning of greenhouse gases for transportation and energy. One would surmise that the respiratory system would be the most affected, and our lungs certainly are affected, but that particulate matter we breathe in goes deep into our lungs and is transmitted to our cardiovascular system and is then transported throughout our bodies. So it can thus affect our hearts and brains. Research indicates even children and the unborn can be affected. But the news, as it relates to health outcomes, is good. When we improve air quality, we see benefits immediately in terms of reduced ER visits, hospitalizations, and deaths. So personal health is one area one can see results of climate action quite quickly. Some of the effects that we are experiencing will continue because the CO2 trapped in our atmosphere takes a long time to dissipate. But by acting quickly, we can make those effects less severe and keep our world tolerable for us all. I started my climate work in the hopes of preserving our beautiful Earth for my grandsons. I am gratified to know that young people are working so diligently on climate issues. So that's why I'm here to express my support for Mesa's Climate Action Plan. My thanks to the City Council for pursuing actions that will conserve our precious resources and keep the air we breathe and the water we drink cleaner and healthier. Thank you for your time and attention. I look forward to watching this process go forward.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anna Moore Almeida.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, cool. My name is Anna Rose Moore Almeida. I am a lifelong City of Mesa resident. I attended Westwood High School, and I am now an engineering student at Arizona State University. Thank you for this opportunity to speak about our city's climate action plan. A response to climate change is urgent, and we need to act now. There are 4 areas of concern that I would like the climate action plan to address, including goals, actions, partnerships, and investments. I would like the following goals addressed. I would like the City of Mesa to adopt a carbon neutral date of 2030, not 2050, as Mr. Boucher stated in the study session on environmental sustainability. I would like a local food system in the plan. I would like the climate action plan fully funded by Earth Day 2022. In the areas of actions, I would like the City of Mesa to declare a climate emergency and for Mayor Giles to join the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. We need heat mitigation and permanent green infrastructure. We need an inventory that describes our entire city carbon footprint. We need to focus on transit investment, including streetcar extensions, busing, and commercial rail. We need a regional scale study that focuses on low carbon transportation like walking, biking, bus rapid transit, streetcar, and electric vehicles. I would like more programs and efforts put into transportation and commercial buildings. I would like the City of Mesa to foster partnerships with community stakeholders, including the following. Mesa Youth want a sustainability commission, which would bring stakeholders together to share best practices, promote partnerships, and create collaborations for sustainability solutions. We should also have a Youth Climate Action Council to guide the development and implementation of the Climate Action Plan. And finally, I encourage the city to think big with the investment. As an example, Ann Arbor, Michigan, population of 113,934 people. That is a third of the size of Mesa. Just committed to spending $1 billion on their climate action plan. The rationale for spending this money is that to do nothing now will result in a substantively higher cost in the future. I'd like to see Mesa demonstrate the same fiscal commitment to this booming issue. We want the City of Mesa to commit to a fully funded plan. While we are working on the climate action plan, we must make it excellent now so that we are ready when the federal funding for infrastructure comes into place. Thank you for the time and thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next speaker is Daniela Lopez.
Hello.
My name is Daniela Lopez. I'm a 15-year-old student at Westwood High School. I'm the president of my school's sustainability club, and I'm one of the Mesa City co-leads for Arizona Youth Climate Coalition. Thank you for listening and giving me your attention and time today. As you know, climate change is one of the biggest world issues we're currently facing as a society. It is crucial that Mesa takes action as a city to combat climate change. I'm asking for a finalized, fully funded climate plan by 2022. In this plan, I ask you to consider environmental racism. Climate change comes with social issues, and climate justice cannot exist without social justice. Climate justice to me means defending those most hurt by climate change, minorities and poverty. Minorities are the majority of people facing poverty, but are the most underrepresented for social issues. The people in poverty are affected the most by climate disasters and will go through the most hardships that stem from climate change. To fight climate change, we need to give a voice to people of color, minorities, and all people currently facing poverty in the city of Mesa. Moving forward in the climate movement, we ask for your honesty and for real action. Mesa needs to follow through with a climate action plan. What minorities need most is truth, commitment, and promises of safety that will be kept. As a concerned minority living in Mesa, I am asking that you fund clean water, clean air, clean energy, that our city focuses on more sustainable forms of travel. I'm asking that you focus on keeping all residents safe. Most poor neighborhoods are exposed to more pollution, which is detrimental to not only their health, but the health of all people everywhere. I'm asking for you to listen to our voices and to listen to the voices of young people like me who are concerned for our safety and future. I'm asking that you declare a climate emergency and take action. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Laurel Harden.
Hello, I'm Laurel Harden, and I'm the co-chair of the Cherishing Creation Collaborative of the Arizona Faith Network. And I'd like to... Hello? Oh, pardon me.
No, we hear you. Please proceed. Laurel, are you still there?
My apologies. I had to mute my computer. Let me start again by thanking all the speakers who spoke before me, and kudos to and agreement, hearty agreement to everything they said. Also, I'd like to share a statement made by Henry David Thoreau. That was a long time ago. What is the good of having a nice house without a decent planet to put it on? So I'd like to thank the council for already starting to work on a plan to address the problems of climate change, which are creating more homelessness, extreme heat, illnesses, water shortages, and problems getting food and supplies in some areas. More people in the valley have died recently from these problems. Developing a plan to offer refuge from extreme heat is extremely important. At Arizona Faith Network, plans are being made to hire a staff person to coordinate with ASU, which has mapped areas of extreme need, and with nonprofits to provide such refuge. A climate plan would identify areas of highest need for refuge and hydration, and provide personnel to coordinate with faith communities and nonprofits. It would also identify where trees are needed to create more shade, cooling, and refuge. Funding to help people with electricity and water bills that they are unable to pay would also be helpful. Again, thank you for working on this important issue.
Thank you. The last two comment cards are from individuals that wanted their comments read out loud. The first one is Adriana Perino. I'm a 15-year-old junior. I was born and raised in Mesa, Arizona, and I'm here to advocate on behalf of our city, state, and planet as a whole. I belong to organizations like Arizona Youth Climate Coalition and Citizens Climate Lobby, and I would like to ask of you, the Mesa City Council, a fully funded climate plan for the city of Mesa, including but not limited to a promise of net zero carbon emissions by 2030 and specific measures taken to alleviate the racial disparities under our current climate legislation. We need more transportation like buses, rapid transit, and streetcars, more energy like the Mesa utility investing in solar, and resilience to extreme heat by investing in urban forestry, green infrastructure, and neighborhood projects. This movement demands change and investing in our future. I'm asking you, every youth of Mesa is asking you, your children and grandchildren, your soon-to-be constituents are asking you to put your money where your mouth is and restore our planet. The next comment is from Ginger Ham, stating, I don't think I'll be able to call in to speak, but wanted to voice my support for the city of Mesa to devise a well-thought-out climate plan that would be an investment for our future. We have solar panels, an electric car, solar water heater system, shade trees, and landscaping on a drip irrigation system, all of which had an upfront cost, but the savings has been actualized over the long term. Those are all the comments, Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes all of the business that's on our agenda. Council, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Mr. Thompson, seconded by Ms. Spilsbury. We'll do a voice vote. All in favor of adjourning, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.
That's what we talked about.